Good evening and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 51, and I am wanting to share a beautiful story called King of the Wind. Now, it's a horse story, and before I can really begin its story, I have to tell a little bit about an incredible horse that was alive in the beginning of the 20th century. This horse was born in either 1916 or 1917, and its name was Man o' War. It was a racehorse and really, really swift. It was a horse that loved to run, as these racehorses do. Loved to be first, and won so many races in America. Now, horses, they typically begin racing at 2 years old, and there's a number of races for 2-year-old horses, and Man o' War just dominated, winning 9 out of 10 races that he was in. In fact, he won every race he was in except one, and he lost to a horse called Upset by a neck. Good name for a horse that's going to beat Man o' War. Man o' War later, in another race, beat this same horse, Upset, by, I believe, a length, which is, the length of a horse. So he redeemed himself. Nonetheless, Man o' War was an incredible horse, and he was one of those incredible creatures that just loved to run. And his owner, I know his first name was Samuel, absolutely adored Man o' War and adored animals and took care of him as best he could in every way. Got royal treatment, it is said. Now, as a 3-year-old, Man o' War continued to dominate the field, and he won 11 out of the 11 races that he competed in. Now, it was interesting. As the horse gets older and as a horse wins more races, if they're winning every race, then there's a handicap that it's given because it's considered so much faster than the other horses. And this handicap is given to the horse in terms of weight. So carried in the saddle are weights to make up for the horse's incredible speed. So in that 3-year-old year, Man o' War began to have to carry weights as well as the jockey when he was racing. And this isn't something that, really makes sense to me. If you're weighting a horse down, why? It's like, if it's a fast runner, let it be a fast runner. And let the glory of that horse just be expressed. Samuel, the owner, did not like this, but he had to go with it. And as Man o' War continued to win more races, it became clear that he was going to have to carry more weight. Samuel didn't even have him race in the Kentucky Derby because he would have carried too much weight, which would have been as a 4-year-old. The last race that Man o' War won was against a Canadian horse named Sir Barton. Sir Barton was just a dominating horse as well, and had won, I believe, the 3 races in America that's known as the Triple Crown. That's the Kentucky Derby, I think the Belmont, and the Preakness. Anyway, Sir Barton was older than Man o' War. It was the one race that Man o' War ran against an older horse. And this was a pretty exciting race. Now, the trainer, as the jockey was mounting Man o' War, told the jockey to allow Man o' War to run his own race. Don't hold him back. Just let him go. And typically a jockey will hold a horse back a little bit until, it's clear that in order to win the race, you got to let it go. Sir Barton, his trainer, had told the jockey just to let Sir Barton run from the very beginning and outdistance Man o' War to the point where there would be no chance that he could catch up. And so when the gates opened, Sir Barton just took off. And Man o' War, the jockey kind of held him back a little bit. He wasn't thinking about what the trainer had said. And Man o' War was struggling, wanted to go. And the jockey at some point remembered, let him run his own race. And so he just gave him his head and allowed Man o' War to just take off. And Man o' War just came ripping right past Sir Barton. And I guess won the race by, 7 lengths or something. Big distance between the two horses, and everyone was just absolutely stunned and amazed. Now, Man o' War's owner knew that this was going to be Man o' War's last race. He'd already decided this, but no one else knew. At the winner's circle, where Man o' War was given a huge trophy, and then a champagne bottle was opened, and the trophy was filled to a certain amount with champagne, which then the owner and the trainer and everybody was supposed to drink out of the trophy. And Samuel instead dumped the champagne on the ground, had the trophy washed out and filled with water for Man o' War. And from his own hands, holding that trophy out filled with water, he had Man o' War drink. And this was the love that he had for that horse. He was known to have said, well, he earned it, didn't he? I didn't. And so he gave all the praise to Man o' War. And then shortly after, at that race, let everyone know that had been Man o' War's last race, because he didn't want his horse running with excessive weights. He felt like it might injure Man o' War's legs. And then what good is a horse if he's got a, broken leg? No good at all. Man o' War basically became a stud. He sired many, many horses. I think he was Seabiscuit's grandsire. And anyway, he was just sired a lot of incredible horses. And the descendants of Man o' War are still some of the fastest horses in the world. Now, there was one thing that kind of interfered with Man o' War's, there was some issue. The issue was his breeding, because down in the line, Man o' War had as one of his ancestors a horse that at one point had been a cart horse. And when his owner, Samuel, was questioned about Man o' War's pedigree, he responded, well, if you would really like to know the story, then you're going to need to sit down and listen, because it's a long one. And so I will tell you the story of the horse that ended up for a little while being a cart horse, that ended up being one of Man o' War's main ancestors. That's what the story King of the Wind is about.